So,
It's good.
all right, it's
Something happened. Okay, so it started now.
okay.
So welcome to the video, Mark.
Thank you, Rachit. And yeah, my name is Mark Moini, and I'm interested in understanding how the mind works and how to make my own more clear, and also help other people, help their mind be as clear as possible, because I think that's really the key to happiness, being able to think clearly.
Yeah, right. It's true. So hello, my name is Rachit. I I basically am the same agenda, like focusing on working about the mysteries of the life and how to become successful and also be happy at the same time. And how to balance life basically between work and health,
Mm-hmm.
And basically my main focus right now is just to find homeostasis so that you are not too much overwhelmed by the workload and the stressors of daily life,
Yes.
to ground yourself. I think that's the main reason for a happy, healthy life, like you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, right. So what do you want to talk, right? Like, what's topic? What's coming on your mind right now?
Well, you were saying, detoxifying the brain and the body and the mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a pretty hot topic, actually.
So
I mean, we can talk endlessly for hours about it.
yes. Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah, but it's really hard to summarize it like in a few minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
it seems to me, there's a different aspects that we can talk about. Just for the start, for the body, I guess nutrition is important. You want to eat in a way that accords with the what nature has prepared us for eating, and
exactly.
if we have that, and if we also breathe clean air, then we're already and sleep enough, then we're already on a really healthy way of living. And then there's the question of stress, but that's more I guess it gets more into the psychology and what happens with the brain, and relation with other people also. So I see those two aspects.
Great. I think for me personally, I feel it's more about not doing the things rather than figuring out what should we do to be happy, right? Because I think when we just cut down the things that we usually do, we are already happy. Like 90% of our lifestyle is basically figuring it out, like not just saying no to most of the things, right? Like, I think the most important problem for us is that we really have this expectation from others that if we say no to someone or even to ourselves sometimes, it's gonna cause some problem, right? If you, because it's kind of like a compelling desire, like when someone asks you to come and do something, or even in a company, whether it is a school job, even parents, they all have expectations, and we have to just keep saying yes to whatever they are asking. And in during this process, we forget the homeostasis that we should be living, rather than always being trying to make others people happy, or trying to fulfill someone else's expectations. Yeah, because when we were kids, we don't really care too much about life. We just in a carefree style, just playing when you want to play, and basic simple things like like just hanging out with friends and chatting, and no ego, no drama, not trying to just beat someone else, or just trying to figure out how to make I guess more money, or cheat someone, or to see someone as your enemy. When we were kids, we just play, and there's like a play spirit, and the mind is also like in a playful style. So I think as we grew up, we just kind of started doing things that society expects us to do to become successful in, the in their own terms. And we clutter our minds with so many knowledge and strategy and so many things. Like for years we just keep putting all this, I'm not saying this bad thing, but we just put so much kind of like overloading the system. And that, instead of making us better, it makes us more like, robot, or sometimes it just threw us out of the homeostasis. So if you can just figure out the activities that is causing us trouble, then we can definitely be more happy and healthy in life, right?
Okay, so if I'm following right, you're saying that naturally, without pressure from people, we would live in a way that is healthy, because that's
exactly that's the way nature has designed us to live, actually. I mean, if you can just find a way to just protect ourselves from the society, the belief system, the psychology of the people that are telling you to do the things that should be good for you. Basically, I think it's more like listening to your own heart and your inner voice. And most of the time people say that they always have this the inner chatter, but I personally feel that it's not their own chatter. It's basically programmed chatter from the outside society. Because just think about it, you cannot feel yourself depressed or anxious or bad. You cannot feel or think like you are unworthy if someone don't tell you, right?
Yes, that's right.
So and growing up as a kid, when we perform well, we were treated like we are pretty good, and we experienced love from parents. Start from parents and up to the society and the families and the friends. And if you don't perform well, or if you don't beat other person or be the best, then they just put us down, and we feel depressed and unworthy. So I think it's really important to just guard ourselves from that psychological barrier that is coming from the society, and be in your own bubble and trying to nourish this bubble so that we can protect our energy from being contaminated by the external thoughts and beliefs of people.
Okay, so it sounds important. Looking back, I guess, on your own experience, and maybe people you see how important it's been, the pressures that were put on you and maybe other people,
Exactly.
that got them out of this balance that you're talking about.
Exactly.
That's what's unhealthy, right?
Yeah, right. So, and I think we are born to be happy. I mean, when I look at kids, like they're just running around the streets until they hit the school age, they're pretty happy kid. I've never seen a 4-year-old kid who's depressed until his parents is doing something to them. I mean, if you just, if they just play with animals, they play with clay, they eat sand, they do all kind of weird stuff. And it's really good to see these kids, and I feel that they are really in this homeostasis, and we are supposed to live like that, right? But it's also important to understand that we cannot be just ignoring our responsibility. So because of the new age society, right, that we live in, we cannot just tell everybody just cut off all this responsibilities. I think it's more about integrating both aspects of your life, like the child and also the adult, and integrating it both as we age. That's really important. So you cannot just ignore one aspect and just focus on another. We have to just keep both at the same time. Like being the kid who is just in a playful style, like even in your work, when you are just doing a project, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not playing if you're not in a playful style, right? If you are like always making this tension and this stressed mood, it can cause a problem. But if you are also in a different weird style where you're not caring for your work, we're just playing all the time, that's also dangerous, right? So it's really about bringing that child and the adulthood and just merging them together and living in that balanced state where you can just kind of live in a homeostasis according to your age and your surroundings.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think stress is something that you cannot ignore in life. You cannot just tell the society to just stop teasing me or stop, fucking with me. I'm sorry. yeah, yeah. I mean, but what you can do is you can just work on yourself and develop this inner bubble, like I said before, that can help you to just navigate through life without being too much overwhelmed by the society and the surroundings. Because it's basically it's more like trying to becoming very immune to the surroundings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and please tell me if that's what you mean, is that children naturally, we're carefree, and we need, I guess, very little from other people. I mean, support for eating and a place to sleep and all of that. That's super important. But what's really needed is avoiding the negatives, like conditional love, and being
Exactly.
threatened, or
Exactly. Right.
having threats of abandonment or punishment, this kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That
Exactly.
that's what really harms us when we're little, because
Exactly.
it gets us to think that to worry that maybe we're not good enough, and
Exactly.
that becomes really unhealthy. And
Right.
without, if we don't get these I guess attacks, then we can grow up and naturally integrate um, work to contribute to society and the life of people around us, with this playful, happy attitude that we naturally have, and that's healthy.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think it's really important to understand that a kid is not that conscious to know that he's being kind of like uh, programmed by his environment, right? Because now we can understand that we have to protect ourselves from like the negative peoples or those people who actually try to drain our energy. We call them energy vampires, right? It's also happened in relationships. People, even in husband-wife relationship, or even any kind of relationship, even family relationship drama and all this thing. I mean, it's really easy to protect ourselves when we are mature rather than we are kids, So it's also a responsibility of the parents to make sure that the kid is not being overwhelmed or some kind of in a bad company of their environment. So it's really important for the parents to force the kids to play and live a life, be like in a playful style. I've seen like many parents, they just force their kids to study hard enough, even though they are not, even though their interest is something else. Maybe they want to become I don't know, maybe a musician or a painter or do something else, but they just force their own beliefs and their own desires onto them, that you want to be this or that. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, is really dangerous for the development of the brain especially for the kids, because they cannot protect that kind of belief system of their parents. So I think from my own personal experience, it's more like they just try to do whatever they can to make sure that they get enough love from their parents, like conditional love you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So they will definitely follow the footsteps of their parents, but it will be based on just conditional love, and it will be just like you are basically programming the anxiety in them by just telling them, if you do this, then we will love you or we will care for you. and they picked it up in the early childhood, I guess, and then when they become adult, they just have the same problem now, because they just feel the same need to do things, like they want to have the same desire. Like if the reason why they're working for companies so that the people in the company loves them back, or the boss appreciate them if they do good, you know. And if they do something bad, they feel depressed, even though the boss has nothing to do with what they are doing, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, we think that the people are that we have put someone else down, but it's actually our own inner um, little voice in the head. They don't give anything about, they don't really care if you are really doing something terrible. It's your, we started becoming so attached to that identity that we need to um, make someone else happy, like I told you before, like the conditional love, right? uh,
Yes, yes.
even though you get the love from your parents, but as long as it's conditional, we will never be satisfied. And I think people spend their whole life sometimes just finding that love, and they face the same problem when they were even married. They just do whatever they can to make the other partner happy, whether it is a male or female, right? And it doesn't work, right? And then they just end up even damaging more than before. So it's really big trouble, I think. So I think we need to really understand that no one can make us happy, and only by understanding the consciousness of human beings, that they can only do whatever they can based on their level of consciousness. So that is really important to understand. And loving yourself is, I think, very important. It's not just like a self it's not like being selfish. It's more like being mature and taking responsibility for your own life. I mean, you cannot tell a 4 years old kid to love himself. He won't understand what he's talking about. But I think it's when we become mature, we can understand what's the importance of loving yourself, right? Because when you're a kid, there's no sense of self. When you are like 4, 5, 6, even until you hit puberty, there is no sense of self uh, until the society tells us that you are this or that. We are just one. Like the kid don't feel like I am separate from other. Uh, I mean, it's really hard to develop a sense of self, and until you become quite mature, I guess. So
Okay.
once the mind kicks in, and the ego mind, because I think it's really important to understand that we cannot escape from this ego mindset, right? The ego has to be there, because without ego we won't be able to uh, progress in life. It is kind of a necessary evil, I guess. Sometimes I can call it like that. But we need to learn how to manage our ego so that we can um, use it to our advantage instead of harming us, right?
Okay. So I'm going to try to, um, repeat what you said just to make sure and summarize, see if I understood right and if you agree with my summary. What I understand is you're saying we naturally start out with just happiness, and then if we get pushed, to deviate from our path, what we naturally like to do and makes us happy in order to please other people,
Exactly.
because we get scared that if we don't do that, then they're not going to love us, they're going to abandon us, and that's very
Exactly.
scary.
Yeah.
Then we lose connection with ourselves. We don't really know who we are and what we like and what we want anymore, and
Yeah.
that's the start of all the problems. And
Exactly.
it's really, when we're little, we're not aware of all this happening,
Exactly.
but we still, receive all this pressure, and it can really throw us off course.
Definitely.
Then later on, we can become conscious of what is going on, and if we manage to get back in contact with ourselves and get back on our own path, what really we really like, what makes us happy, what fulfills us in life, then it's possible for us to find that happiness again, and also be able to contribute to society without all the problems and the stress and oh, yeah, that
Exactly.
if we don't do that, and if we stay doing what people want us to do, that's not really our true nature.
Exactly. It's really important to figure out your own purpose in life. I guess it's not something that you can ask other people to give it for you. Like what makes you happy. I mean, for one person, playing hockey or a saucer is going to make them happy. For another person, doing engineering work or inventing new ideas is going to make them happy. So you cannot just say that one person is bad and another person is good, right? So
Yeah.
you have to make sure like we figure it out what is making you happy personally, and we cannot do this until we are being trapped in this condition love concept that always trying to please other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to just and I think that's the one of the reason why we have this kind of behavior is because of the conditional love that we get in the childhood. That's like a programming, right? It's like a software that is installed in the brain when we were kids, and now it's in the subconscious mind, so it's running in the background, and no matter how mature you are still going to be like that whiny child all the time. And maybe it's not going to come in the form of like neediness, but it will always be like in a form of like a indirect way, like trying to do something to get something in return, always having expectation from other person, or even having too much expectation from yourself. That's also a big problem. Having so much expectation from yourself is also a kind of a unhealthy lifestyle, if you think, because it's really basically in indirect way of saying it's like telling the world that you want too much from yourself so that you can eventually get something in return, right? Because if you expect too much from yourself, then definitely you feel a sense of lack somewhere, and you right. and you're pushing in one direction to balance the lack in
mm-hmm. Okay, so if I understand correctly, that's another aspect. There's all these expectations that we take on from other people, I guess, and we think that if we don't behave in that way, then we're no good, and that's I guess part of the toxic ideas that you see in life, that we need to be aware what comes from us and what's pressure from others, and be able to I guess follow our own path, what fulfills us in life, because that's what's healthy for us, and ultimately also for others, because it makes us better people to be around, right?
Exactly. I think many people, they always blame that this about the inner voice in their head, the default mode network, the DMN, and they claim that people who have anxieties or high stress, it's always negative. But I personally feel that it's not basically a bad thing. Actually, it's more like a friend that has become your enemy because of too much expectation and trying to please other people. Because if you can think about it, the same the default mode network in the brain can become useful and become your inner voice for your own upliftment and motivation if you're very careful about the people with whom you associate with, the places that you visit, the ideas that is going on in your mind. So you have to be really conscious about what you are doing, what you are thinking, what you are feeling, and becomes a kind of sensitive. So people who are very, I think, highly sensitive people, they can use that as an advantage to figure out if that thing is healthy or not. So instead of seeing that default mode network as a bad thing, right? Like many psychedelics, I remember they talk about shutting down the default mode network in the brain that always keep thinking, right? Yeah. I mean, many psychedelics, they basically just reduce the activity of the default mode network, and it causes them to become almost clear of thoughts. But I personally feel that you don't really need to shut it down. You can actually program it in the positive way. And because ultimately that default mode network can become your friend if you, and that is your real, true, I think, um, true nature or your true soul that is speaking to you. It's just that it gets corrupted by the, it's like, I kind of like this analogy between softwares and computers with the brain. It's very easy to understand as well. Like if you want to protect your software, you need to make sure you have a very strong antivirus, right? And when we are kids, we are vulnerable. There is no antivirus. But when we become conscious, that our own consciousness is kind of like an antivirus that can actually make sure that we are not getting any garbage into our brain. And using our default mode network for our own advantage, the processor, instead of harming us in the negative way. So it's really important to be conscious all the time. And I'm not saying it's very easy. It's very difficult. I mean, you have to be, you have to really work on yourself every single day to make sure that you are not being controlled by your mind. And instead you are the controller that is regulating your whole mind and your whole, even the emotions and thoughts.
Yeah. So is it that you're saying that it's important to realize, it's been important for you to realize that actually you are, all good inside. There's nothing wrong. It's important to recognize that and to know that we have the capacity to use our, natural abilities like consciousness, being aware of what we do, to protect who we are from influences from people who, whether they mean it or not, end up pushing us into behaviors that aren't really good for us or for anybody, really.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's can be like detoxification of the mind. You have to detoxify all the garbage that is being put into you since you were a kid until now.
Yes.
So for some people, they carry decades of garbage and they didn't even know about it. Their whole life is revolved around it, and they just keep repeating the same pattern again and again. It's like a software that is being stuck in the same loop and just keep repeating itself. And it's really hard to new ideas to kick in because you are always stuck in this vicious cycle, right?
Yeah, it can get really, I guess, overwhelming to be caught like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think the level of severity, the cycle that you get stuck in, the level of severity can be intense, and the treatment or the intervention has to be proportional to that level of severity. Like, for example, if you are so super stuck, like you cannot even force yourself. I mean, it's like it's become so deep ingrained that you are now in a state of chronic anxiety and chronic depression, and maybe even diseases like cancer. They're all manifestation of that same faulty default mode programming. So I think it requires very severe interventions like psychedelics, any kind of psychedelics, whether it's ayahuasca, iboga, or mushrooms, psilocybin, ketamine, whatever it is, to knock you out of it. It's like if you have a big problem, then you need a bigger medicine to fix it and heal it. And you cannot blame the person for having this problem as well, because they were completely unconscious with what's going on in them. Because in their own mind, I think there's also a little bit of like stigma, like people think that people who are ill, they're bad people, and they also suffer from a sense of guilt that if we are sick, that it means we are bad people. It's actually quite the opposite, actually. People who are the sickest are the most amazing people, actually. They are just so delicate human beings that they don't know, and they are so sensitive that I think the societies, they are like the newborn baby, basically. I feel like that, who has no defenses of its own. That's why they are becoming sicker in this world. So I think it's really important for the Western medicine to understand the human psychology and anatomy on the base of the level of their consciousness rather than focusing on the treating the body as separate machines, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really important for this kind of treatment like psychedelics to kick in to come into the picture, because I think just having a positive motivation video or just talking positive to them or giving them like a counseling or sessions, and it's not going to be enough. It's like trying to win a battle with just a couple of bullets. Yeah, like you need a very heavy artillery. Like, I mean, ayahuasca, I think, and psilocybin, they are like literally like tanks and atom bomb. If you ask me, I mean, they are very powerful medicine, and if they are not used properly, they can also do the severe damage as well.
Yes.
So I will never recommend someone who's super, I mean, who's not that sick, who is just having a mild anxiety or just stress to go and drink ayahuasca. I mean, you don't need it, right? You can just fix it by doing some modification in your lifestyle. But someone who is just suicidally depressed or who is just in so much chronic pain that he cannot just live a single day, he has to go and do this. I mean, it's like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, am I understanding correctly? You're saying that as people, we are, maybe some people, maybe all people, I don't know, but certainly some people are very, very sensitive, and that's what makes people susceptible to all this harm that
Exactly.
can come from pressures from others, from society to behave in a certain way and lose touch with ourselves, and then we can get caught in loops that keep us, separate from who we are, and in order to break out of that vicious circle, it's the strongest tools that are psychedelics, right? Because these
exactly.
take you out of that vicious loop and allow you to, I guess, float free, and then you can find your way to yourself again.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Although I think, well, yes, if you can use psychedelics in a proper setting with the intention, to go inside and look for these vicious circles and how to get free from them, that can be really helpful.
Really helpful. Yeah, I've seen so many people reporting a cure, and almost I think it was like more than dozens of people claiming that it's like the symptom just gone like after a few sessions, and they never returned for even 5 years. Especially for the traumatic people, like post-traumatic PTSD. It's like full remission. So it's like one session is like more than enough to but they all talked about the changes that they made in the lifestyle after going through this psychedelics. So I think it's possible, because once you break that repetitive loops, right, that vicious cycle, and that's gone, then you can take control of your life, and you can take control, not very quickly. It's not something that can happen like in a couple of days or weeks, but at least you have some sense of control over your brain and over your body, and you can start making small changes daily basis, and over a period of months you can get way better.
Okay. So it's a huge relief to be able to get out of those vicious cycles, and to see the path to getting back to health, and then you can implement that little by little.
Because I think some people are so lost in the world that they need to have a very strong intervention, and it really breaks my heart to see them like going through all this mental institution and being hospitalized and just treated like some kind of criminals. It's really sad. I mean, it's really bad to see them suffer like that. It's not healthy. I mean, and even
So you can relate to the pain, right, that these people are feeling when they're treated this way, when they're not
Exactly.
seen for
Yeah.
what's going on with them, how they suffered, and how
Exactly.
they're suffering from what was done to them. And instead of
Exactly.
being helped to reconnect to themselves,
Exactly.
they're being labeled as crazy or bad, and then they're given treatments that only try to deal with the symptoms in the
Yeah.
body, and not
Yeah.
do something at the root of the problem that helps them
Exactly.
reconnect with themselves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, and they put them. I think even the psychiatrists, they just put them labels like, okay, you have chronic depression, you have suicidal depression, you have OCD, paranoia, delusion, schizophrenia, whatever the name, you can just label them. They just want to make people label, even labels like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, chronic autoimmune illness, or weird names. I mean, it's kind of weird, like how the society just likes to label stuffs and just put them in a box.
Yeah.
Chronic migraine, cluster headaches, even cancer. The word cancer, they just put the label cancer. They don't really understand what is cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just they love to label things. They see something going abnormal. Okay, label it cancer. Label it diabetes.
Yes, and that's tunnel vision, right? It's not
Yeah.
seeing the problem for the whole of it and where it comes from, and yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's really important to understand that human beings are just one universal consciousness. We are not separated from the world. And if we try to solve the mystery of life, we have to really understand on a global perspective, not just one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really important to, and I feel really bad for these people that they are like treated like, even kids, having severe neurological problem like seizures, right?
Mm-hmm.
They there's no, the treatment that they give them is like some injections, shots to just reduce the seizures, or weird kind of medication, just experimenting with them, and their condition doesn't improve at all. And I heard recently like the CBD, like I think we discussed about this before, right?
Right.
It's like Charlotte's Web, the people who started making CBD with high CBD and low THC, and the seizures reduce almost to 1 or 2 a day, from
Yes. Yeah.
20 to 50 times a day. That's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, that's a lot of reduction. And autistic people, kids who having autism, yeah, being treated like literally like criminals, like they were just hospitalized and just put in mental institutions. And yeah, they just do. It's weird how the society treats people who have any kind of, I think it's not really like a mental illness. I think it can be anything. Even Alzheimer's or Parkinson, even dementia, or even autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis. There is no treatment. They just put them in a hospital. They just hook them up with some uh, medications, give them sedatives just to reduce the pain. And
Yeah.
that's not a solution, right? That is just a bandage and just trying to just satisfy their own ego, that they're just saying we don't know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
But we are not going to admit it, so we're going to treat you with something, whatever we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they will, if they just uh, accept that they don't know what the heck is going on with the people who are having any kind of these problems,
Right.
it will be do less damage than just
Yeah.
giving them weird treatments that they
Yeah.
have no idea. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the modern psychiatry, the medication, they have no idea what this drug is doing in their brain, but they just still keep giving them, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's crazy. Even the um, cancer treatment, like the treatment for cancer is all experimental. If you give chemotherapy, I think it does more damage than good.
Yeah.
If you just chemotherapy for like one part of the body, all of a sudden the next part will develop it. So
Yes. Yes.
unless you have
Mm-hmm.
to burn the person whole completely.
Yeah.
but they never accept that they don't have a treatment. They just say, okay, we can do something for you.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so I think it's really important to understand that Western medicine is itself a big trouble for our humanity, because the concept that they used is selective. They treat the body as separate parts and not as one. Where if you go to the Eastern medicine, they just, even Chinese medicine, they just treat the whole body as one. So it's really important to make some drastic revolutions in our society, for maybe making them aware by just having this conversation like in video, just to make them aware that there is a lot of that there's a solution to every problem. You just have to find the right treatment, and not being disappointed. Because I've heard cases like Western medicine saying that some people just claim that cancer is incurable, right? But those who believe them eventually die, and those who just challenge them come out of it and just beat the cancer in their own holistic alternative treatment ways. I've heard like one person, he was having some kind of heart problem, like, and the doctor told him that if you don't do a bypass surgery, you will die in a couple of weeks. He just ignored them, and he just flew to Peru for ayahuasca, and after that he just feel like and after that he just went back to the hospital and go through the treatment, and they find out that his heart is fine. It just cured. There's no need for any bypass transplantation, and doctors were almost shocked. And until then, he lived without any heart problems for more than 20 plus years now. So it's really important to challenge the Western medicine. And like I told you before, I think my battery is down. Let me put a charger.
Okay.
Give me just a few seconds. Sorry for that. Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. Oh God, where is my charger? Okay. Okay, it's fine now.
Okay.
I'm sorry for so sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I thought it's gonna work. It just battery's dead, almost dead. Anyway, so yeah.
So you were saying that it's very frustrating to see that in Western medicine, people apparently focus only on a small part of the problem, and they don't see that it's linked to what goes on in the whole person, and even further than that, in what goes on between people, I guess society in its entirety. Yeah. And that's really important to realize, to be able to help people who are suffering to come back to health, because focusing on just one small part of the problem is not going to help, and it's just going to create more suffering. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that like we discussed before, the detoxification of the mind, there is no one tool for it, right? We can use so many different kind of tools. Like from my own experience, I think you cannot meditate if you are having all these crazy symptoms all around your body, right? You cannot say a person to go and meditate if you're having anxiety or depression. This is crazy. It's like telling a person who has broken his leg to just go and just keep running, and you're gonna be fine. I mean, you need these interventions, whether it is through some ceremonies or some retreat centers, or psychedelics is like, it doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be powerful enough to help the person to make sure that they can find the right treatment based on the level of severity that they are going through.
Yeah. Yes, you want people to have, I guess, powerful enough remedies for helping them, connect back to themselves and
Exactly.
remove all these toxic ideas and pressures from their life.
Because
Maybe not pressures, it's the
yeah,
ideas.